the Ferrari 246 GTS. 14th from the end, 08492 is getting a new air conditioning system, and I've already accomplished a lot of the work, but I wanted to go through and detail the parts that go in the system, some tips, some tricks, some hints on installations, some problem areas, and then a third episode for tuning, how to tune based on subcooling. So today I want to go through the parts of it, and this applies to both Series 1 and Series 2 air conditionings. So you probably wonder, how can I tell if I have a Series 1 or Series 2 air conditioning? The difference between a Series 1 and Series 2 air conditioning can be easily seen by looking underneath the glove box for a vent into the evaporator. Series 1 did not have this, Series 2 did have this. So both Series 1 and Series 2 air conditioning systems fit in the same profile. The differences being the condenser up front was a stubby, 20% shorter length. Series 1 and Series 2 evaporators fit in the same housing that was cleverly created by Borletti, but Series 1 has 45-degree flare fittings. Series 2 uses green HNBR O-rings. Series 1 condensers were 20% shorter and had 45-degree flare fitting. Series 2 air conditioning had HNBR O-rings as their seats. The Ferrari Dino 246 GTS air conditioning system has only 4 hoses, and at each end of the hose is a component. So you should be able to get a complete set shipped to you for well under $3,000 in parts if your system is already existing and you do not change out the dash console switches or any of the brackets or pulleys are needing to be replaced around the engine. If you don't have those in your system, you cannot add air conditioning to a Dino. In front of the radiator, we have the condenser. This is a Series 2 which goes full width. I've even produced the Del Key OEM stickers. And it is full length radiator, whereas Series 1 of course was 80% length. Having a new condenser with O-ring seals is going to improve the system quite a bit. The first connection from it is the dryer, pressure switch assembly, both high and low, as well as the high pressure port access for maintenance tools. You can see the old system had some horribly bent hoses, as well as a 90-degree plumbing angle. And this sharp inside edge is a real eddy current creator on the flow. That really robs it. In addition, I have reduced the number of seals in the system. The dryers now accept the high-low binary switch together rather than having a low switch and a high switch. There's actually a box attached to this, but the capillary tube was so difficult, I just cut it to remove it. So apologies for not having everything there. But this switch now covers it all, and you have fewer connections in the line. Plus, I will be adding a high pressure port for tools to be a fit, as well as a new hose section to go over the steering. So now we have 45-degree angles. So instead of a hard right turn that creates eddies and obstructions in the flow, we can have a nice 45-degree flow. That will reduce the number of cracks over time and lengthen the life of our hoses. Pressure range for the binary switch is important for your refrigerant. R12 did not need as high of pressures to run as our 134A does. So in order to get the same cooling, you really need to bump up the pressures to our 134A specs. An old R12 pressure switch will be fine, but it will cut off before your system has achieved optimal cooling. So if you're okay with cooling at 80% of your system's ability, then retain the same R12 switches. If not, we use brand new boots and our brand new shiny pressure switches. The dryer in this system has the smallest hoses, both coming from the condenser and then reaching over to the thermal expansion valve mounted on the evaporator. This is because it's carrying a liquid and will be presented to the thermal expansion valve to provide cooling at the evaporator. I commissioned the evaporators and condensers to be made. This is a 16-row 4-pass with a reproduction Delkey sticker I made on. I've got brand new thermal expansion valves. From there, the largest hose in the system goes from the evaporator and the cooling cabin to the air conditioning compressor. The largest hose in this whole system of the Dino air conditioning arrives at the compressor for the return. I prefer to use a TCCI compressor. Although you can get $300 Vallejo compressors, I find the TCCI build quality warrants double the price. There are aftermarket black compressor clutches. I have this one removed, difficult to do with one hand, but I prefer to use the old Borletti. I will be cleaning this up a little bit better. I've got it removed. I have all the bolts removed. I now need to break that Woodruff key C's there, then mount it on here. These only come in black. So what I do is I mask off the fasteners and protect it, and then I hit it with Duplicolor DE 1650 cast coat aluminum paint. Duplicolor 1650 results in that. This was originally black, and all I did was mask it off and hit it. And doesn't it look great? Every compressor is going to need valves on the top. These are old backseat valves. I have chosen the higher reliability of Rotolock Teflon seals, and they'll be mounted over here, right on top of there. I didn't take the plug off. And you'll notice it has this big red access valve. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cover for the backseat valve, let's see, off like that, and fashion it on here. I'll mill down that outside red so we have the look of it. It's not a side port, and I'll bet because it's tucked in, concourse judges won't notice. So if we eliminate the red, I'll get some adhesive or caulking silicone to fill in. I'll use the threads from the inside of the red, mill that down, slip it inside this old backseat valve cover, and it will look original. Same with the blue one on this side, and then we will have a really nice looking vintage setup. Right, the other valve will be like that. If you had another hand, I could show. There's a 20-second mock-up. You can see better what I'm talking about. These backseat valves will be prominent on the front. You won't see the color of those, and it'll look a OEM. Again, I've also reproduced the Aspera Friga tags. Sheet over there has one, and I will place those prominently on here, mounted on a piece of aluminum, so judges can see this little section as they pierce into the car, and then not much more. So I think it's going to be really neat. Now, you want to make sure your compressor is right-hand suction. Originally, these were produced, 50 years ago in a 0.06 cubic inch capacity. They called the York 206R for right-hand suction. You don't want that. Modern day, they've bumped 0.6 up to a full 1.0 cubic inch displacement. So this compressor has 40% more displacement, and I believe when we get this together and start tuning it, it'll get exciting. This will not be our limitation. Anyhow, we're going to look even more concourse. Let's move on. Oh, here's always a die pack. Something I put in it just to detect leaks in the system. Better to have this stuff in first. And our longest hose is over 12 feet long going up to the condenser. As we pass through areas that are not seen by concourse judges, I will use an insulated foamy in the rocker panels to keep just a little bit more insulation in the 7-layer barrier hose. So that's what it takes in parts, and generally if you can get away with $3,000 or less, you're doing well.